Imagine a substance on this earth that is so toxic that it could end up killing us sooner than you think. Hi, my name is Kylie, and today I will be doing a persuasive speech on the pollution of plastic on the earth. So, 91% of the plastic on Earth is actually not recycled. And I personally think that's a huge number because so much plastic is everywhere and everybody talks about recycling and everything and nobody does it. With the plastic, it breaks down in our soils and in our oceans, and it pretty much just poisons our water, and it can also poison our ground, making all of our crops poisonous and having little shards of plastic in them. So the world is hugely impacted by plastic. And so why recycling is such an important action is that if we don't recycle our plastic and we keep doing what we're doing with our plastic, then it'll eventually overflow the oceans and it'll eventually we'll end up eating just plastic because it'll contaminate everything that we want to eat. So today we're going to go through the production of plastic, the contamination that plastic leaves on the earth, and the plastic overflowing into the oceans. So for my first point, it's the production of plastic. So overproduction of plastic will ultimately ruin the earth. The first synthetic plastic, it was called Bakelite, and it was produced in 1907. And this was really the beginning of the plastic industry productions. But the overproduction of plastic wasn't really realized until 1950. Over the next 65 years, 381 million tons of plastic were made from 1950 to 2015. Some scientists went out and made the world's first tally of the plastic, and they, end quote, they said they were horrified by the sheer size of the numbers of plastic put in our environment each day. So the amount of plastic manufactured in the first 10 years of this century eclipses the total produced plastic in the entire last century. So the more plastic we use and the more plastic that we don't recycle, the plastic industries basically think that we're not using plastic, so we need to make more because the demand for plastic is so high right now. And that leads to my second point. The simplest plastics, such as the ones used in grocery stores, take about 50 years to decompose. The more complex ones take 100 to 600 years to decompose. Plastic bottles and disposable diapers take 450 years to decompose. Plastic fishing lines take more than 600 years to decompose. According to Marine Conservation Reports, EPA, the ocean is filled with 20% of fishing lines, which can be problematic for fish and sea turtles because fishing lines seem like they're invisible to them, and so when they get entangled in them, they're not really sure what it is, and so it can constrain movement and end up killing them. Ronald Geyer, the study's lead author of How Many Years It Takes, said you can't manage what you don't measure. It's not that we make a lot, it's that we also make more year after year. So what he's saying here is if we don't measure how much plastic we already have and we just think that it's an endless thing that won't harm the environment, then we're going to get more and more year after year, and it'll end up covering the planet, going into the oceans, and we're not going to be having as much good stuff as we do. So for my second point, contamination, the main and most common chemical in plastic, which is also the harshest, is called leachate. And leachate results from the precipitation entering the landfill from moisture that exists in the waste when it is composed. It's also characterized by high values of COD, pH, ammonia, nitrogen, and heavy metals, as well as strong color and bad odor. The black liquid contains organic and inorganic chemicals, and it can pollute our groundwater, and make it into a health risk for everybody who pretty much consumes crops. It can also make it very problematic for the farmers because the soil is not rich enough because all of the chemicals from the plastics go into the soil. And also electronic waste is a good example of how badly plastics can harm the environment. Waste such as televisions, computers, and other electronic appliances contain a long hazardous list of substances including mercury, arsenic, cadmium, PVC, solvents, acids, and lead. So, on to my third point. Trash flowing over into the oceans. Oceans are being impacted by plastic pollution every day. Oceans are being polluted, making our fish and marine animals sick, and ultimately they get killed by plastic. Of the 8.3 metric tons, 6.3 tons has become plastic waste, 9% has been recycled, and 78% of landfills end up in oceans. There's enough plastic in the bag to fill 5 grocery bags of plastic trash and pile each one on top of each other for each foot of the coastline on the planet. Also, a huge controversy of ocean trash is plastic straws. Plastic straws are causing a controversy for marine animals because it is on the top 10 list for marine debris collected every year, a whopping 5 million straws per day, a number that end to end could circle the planet 2.5 times. There's a video going around of a sea turtle with a straw stuck in its nose, and they think it's a hookworm at first, and so they try to take it out, and it ends up being a 4-inch plastic straw that was obstructing the sea turtle's breathing. And also there is this other video circling around Instagram where it's about like cleaning up trash and how much it could make an impact on the world if we all just do a little bit, like a bag a day or something. The importance of this problem is that if we keep up our waste, plastics will end up making the earth uninhabitable. The extent of the problem is in every product that we eat on a daily basis, they are micro pieces of plastic that are slowly poisoning us. According to a study, the average person swallows an estimated 68,415 plastic fibers each year just from the dust landing on their plates during meals. The same team that concluded the study above concluded that the average person ingests about 100 plastic particles each year from shellfish, the remnants of microplastic water pollution. So what we could do to fix this, we could be more green and use reusables when we can. We could use cloth bags and we could reuse glass milk bottles, so the less waste that will be on Earth, the less chemicals we'll have in our land, soil, and everything. Dr. Susan Wright of Harvard Environmental Science Division said that if everybody changes their habits to use greener products for the environment, there will be a 30% decrease of litter a year. So, using cloth bags and glass milk bottles, recycling the plastic items you have now, and reusing the plastic items you do have now to stop overproduction will help this problem tremendously. If every person in America does this, there will be a 42% decrease production of plastic. If we keep up our waste, the oceans will be replaced and overfilled by plastics. I went over the production of plastic, the contamination, and the ocean being polluted. This poisons our waterways and soils. What we could do is recycle, and here's to a clean future. Thank you.
Andreas, what did you think?
I just came in.
Oh, well, so that doesn't work. Okay. Well, the topic is identified. It sounds like ultimately there's an argument in favor of recycling in the presentation. That's what comes up at the end of the speech, and I think you could probably focus on that a little bit earlier in the presentation. The risks of plastic are presented. I heard number 2 points, so that's a little bit confusing. Some of the information is just not very clearly presented. Like at one point I had the ocean is filled with 20% fishing line, and I don't know what that means. You know, that 20% of the ocean has fishing line someplace in it, or you know that if I were to walk on the ocean, I could walk on fishing line 1/5 of the time. I think there's information here that you're using that you haven't figured out what it means, and it's just being plugged in here, and that's a little bit problematic. And that happens in a lot of places. The failure to dispose of plastic properly, I think, is probably the thing that you want to be focusing on. You're focusing on plastic as a problem as opposed to focusing on our failure to dispose of it properly. Why it's in the ocean is not explained to me. I assume that there are reasons why it ends up in the ocean that probably are inappropriate. When you mentioned ground contamination, I'm going, well, what did we do? Plant the plastic under the crops? That's not clear to me at all how we get this kind of contamination that you're talking about. There's generic information about some of the chemical components in plastics, but you never link it to particular illnesses or diseases. I don't know how to evaluate the particles that you're talking about toward the end of the speech, where you mentioned, you know, that we consume X number of particles a day just because of the plastic dust in the environment. I'm going, okay, so how much is that? You know, how dangerous is it? What risks are associated with that? I don't know any of those things because it just seems like I said, it's sort of random information that's being presented. The presentation is really problematic. You've got your hands locked behind your back most of the time. You're looking down and reading most of the time. You're not really engaging. And I think that at this point in the term, that's really problematic because it undermines your credibility. You've got content here, but it hasn't been put together very clearly. Some of the content is sort of random, and I think you're missing the issue, which you do get to toward the end, which is the need for recycling, our failure to dispose of waste properly, in your desire to tell us what the problem is because it's in the environment. I think you spend more time on that than you need to, and even then it's not clear what the environmental risks are. We need to get through that a little bit quicker and then focus on your solution a little bit more. Also what the cause of the problem is. I think, like I said, it got a little underdeveloped. All right, I'm going to stop there because we have